Whenever you're starting something new, like a course, training, or even a YouTube channel, you want to know a little bit more about the person running it. First thing, do they know what they're talking about? Second thing, are they trustworthy? And is this somebody who you can relate with? Today, I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite games of all time, so you can kind of see where I'm coming from with the rest of the videos I'm going to be bringing out, and also so we can get to know each other a little bit better. Let's get into it. Hi, welcome to Pixel Codex. My name is Remington Keller. If you're new here, I'm going to help you rediscover your childhood love of gaming and find out about all the games you missed out over the years and the best way to play them today. Number 10, Silent Hill. Silent Hill 2 is one of the scariest games of all time. I'm a huge fan of the horror genre, so I had to put a horror game on here. It's about a guy who gets a letter from his dead wife telling him to come to Silent Hill. It goes from a Stephen King mystery into a straight up David Lynch nightmare. I was a huge fan of the original, and the second one improves on it in every way. The graphics and CG for the time were incredible, and the gameplay is just improved all around. And the soundtrack by Akira Yamaoka is just incredible. The thing about Silent Hill games, they're not about jump scares like Resident Evil. Now, don't get me wrong, Resident Evil games, they're awesome, but you're not really scared, you know? You have guns, you have a ton of ammo. Like, I mean, they might be out there, but I've never heard of anyone who has nightmares and can't fall asleep after playing Resident Evil. Now, Silent Hill, it's not straight up jump scares, it's more of like a psychological horror. There'll be parts of the game where there's no enemies around, and you just don't want to go forward. There's a part of the game where you're walking around this crazy rusted over hellscape, and the soundtrack is just someone bashing on a piano. You don't even want to walk to get to where you want to go. It's got one of the most brutal twists of any game ever. And most people who play the game, myself included, the first time through, you're gonna get the bad ending. It's just super sad, and it's really, after struggling through this horribly psychological scarring game, it just ends on a really depressing note. The whole game just completely messes with your mind. And characters who you think you're talking to, you have no idea if they're even who they say they are, or if that's even what's really happening. Number 9 is Deus Ex. Deus Ex is a cyberpunk first-person shooter with RPG elements. I remember my first time playing the game, I was blown away by the fact that you can just play it any way you want. This came out right after the original Half-Life, and at the time, there was nothing else like it. So the very first level, a bunch of terrorists taking over Ellis Island, the Statue of Liberty's blown up, it's crazy. You can choose any way you want to tackle the mission. You can run in guns blazing, you can sneak around through like air ducts, or you can choose to hack the security systems and make drones kill all the bad guys. Nowadays, there's tons of games that give you that option, and you kind of take it for granted, but this was one of the first games that really took it and brought it all together. It's also got RPG elements, so you can upgrade your guy, you can choose which path you want to go down to crack safes, etc. It was the first game I can remember that had real consequences for your action that persist throughout the game. So after you beat the first level, you go back to your base, and depending on where you go in there, like if you go in the wrong room or somewhere you're not supposed to be, throughout the whole game people be talking about it, like, hey, why'd you go in the girls' bathroom? The graphics at the time were great, it had an amazing soundtrack, and if you've never played it, definitely check it out. If you're getting some value from this video, please hit like and subscribe down below, and let me know, what's your top 10 favorite games? Honestly, making this list was a lot harder than I thought. So let me know, and just be warned, it's way harder than it looks. Number 8 is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. As a kid, one of the first games I ever got was Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest on the original Nintendo. I loved it because it had a ton of monsters in it, like I said, big horror guy, but I remember I was always scared when it would turn to night and all the monsters would come out. On top of that, the gameplay was kind of tough, and it was just a super confusing game. And back in the day, there wasn't any internet, so if you didn't have the strategy guide from Nintendo Power or had a friend who knew what to do, you weren't going to beat it. So I loved both of those games, but I could never really get far in them. Then Symphony of the Night came out. It combines the exploration and ability upgrades of Super Metroid with the environment and gameplay of Castlevania. To me, it's the best of both worlds. Now, at the time when this came out, Sony had some rule where for the first PlayStation they were trying to push like how great it was with 3D graphics, how many polygons it would do, and for some reason they were against bringing out 2D games. So if you look back for like the first year or two, there were very few, if any, just straight up 2D games. But I'm so glad they changed this policy to bring out this game. You get a huge castle to explore, awesome ability upgrades, even some light RPG elements, and that Castlevania gameplay that you know and love. It has some of the best 2D sprite art of any game, and the soundtrack is by far one of the best of all time. The Last of Us was one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 3, and that's saying a lot. It was made by Naughty Dog, who did the Jak and Daxter series and then Uncharted, and every game they come out with just gets better and better. It was a really hard decision to pick between Uncharted 2 and The Last of Us, but The Last of Us wins out by the story alone. This is one of the best games I've ever played. Throughout the game, you're basically traveling through this post-apocalyptic world that's been ravaged by zombies. You get to see this environment that's been destroyed and has essentially been reclaimed by nature. It's got some of the most beautiful backdrops I've ever seen. You're essentially just trying to survive. You have to craft together items from scrounging around things to make weapons. It's got awesome stealth gameplay. And like I said, the story is incredible. The story and relationship between Joel and Ellie is just so good. It has the most heart-wrenching beginning 20 minutes of any game I've ever played. If you haven't played it yet, you definitely owe it to yourself to check it out. You won't be disappointed. When you do, make sure you play the DLC as well. I highly recommend it. It adds the complete story. Number 6. This is probably going to be my most controversial pick on the whole list. I had to pick one of the Final Fantasy games, and I'm going Final Fantasy XII. So back in the day, right after Final Fantasy VII, they brought out Final Fantasy Tactics. If you never played it, it's one of the best turn-based strategy RPGs of all time. So they both take place in the world of Evilist. The plot's basically filled with all this political intrigue, and it's a welcome change from all the high fantasy of previous games. Now granted, it does have some of that. You still have airships, you're flying around, so it's got sci-fi, it's got all that. But it felt a lot more grounded. Final Fantasy XII has some of the most realistic and grounded characters out of the whole series. The world is so well crafted, and you can go into any shop and it feels like it really should be there. You see all the armor on the walls, like swords, and you just get absorbed in the whole world. Now, a lot of people don't like this battle system. It feels like you're playing an MMO by yourself, but once you understand it, it's amazing. What I really like about the battle system in this game is in a normal RPG, as you're fighting guys, you have to hit normal attack over and over again. So you're basically hitting X over and over again the entire game. It gets really repetitive and boring. And in this, you can program your party members to basically do whatever you want. So if your health drops below a certain level, they'll heal you up. If you get poisoned, they give you an antidote. If there's a nice guy, they'll shoot fire at it. Now in a boss battle, you're definitely going to want to switch over to manual. But aside from that, it really speeds it up and it lets you focus on what you want to be doing. If you want a more realistic, grounded political story and characters, great graphics, definitely check it out. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe and let me know down in the comments below what are your favorite games of all time. Thanks a lot for joining me. Have a good one.